I think when you think about the economic problems the country faces, you need to distinguish between the emergencies and then the chronic problems. And one of the things where we get in trouble in political life is when we spend so much time on the emergency that we lose track of the longer term difficulty. I have no doubt that the United States will successfully work its way through this credit crisis, that interest rates will be lowered. The Federal Reserve will apply money where it can. Ben Bernanke has done a series of brilliant improvisations. For example, he's now allowing investment banks to borrow from the Federal Reserve, which only commercial banks used to be able to do, as a way of getting capital into the markets and calming things. I don't worry too much about the credit crisis. What I worry about instead are two deeper problems that require something more than just good emergency management. I worry about the crisis in middle-class incomes, except it's wrong to call it a crisis because it's been going on so long. The deep reasons why a successful modern economy, and not just in the United States but everywhere, seems to be concentrating its rewards on a few people, and why so many people feel that they are left out of this. And then I worry about the finances of the United States. I mean, we have a really chronic fiscal problem where the country's obligations are much greater than its projected revenues, where we're soon going to have this massive wave of retirements that can, where the country has written checks that it can only honor by imposing taxes on productive enterprise that are going to slow the growth of the economy and make it even more impossible to honor the checks than it already is. And I think when I think about what am I worried about, I'm not worried that there's going to be some terrible debacle on Wall Street that's going to defeat the Federal Reserve. I'm worried that you're going to have an audience for destructive, radical ideas because middle-class people feel under pressure. And I'm worried that the United States has made commitments that it can only honor by corroding its own productiveness. It's not just social, no, and it's not, I use the word crisis and I'm sorry, because what I mean is a chronic corrosion. A gradual weakening. And it's not just Social Security. The medical commitments are even bigger. But the United States has promised over the next 40 years to write tens of trillions of dollars of checks that are greater than the projected revenues of the United States. And that is a big problem. And if the United States tries to solve that problem by saying, well, we'll raise the taxes to honor the checks, what that will mean is it will crush the productive economy. And one of the things that is one of the great arts, I think Louis XIV's finance minister said, the art of taxation is to extract the maximum of feathers from the goose with the minimum of hissing. Well, we're in danger of having a situation where the government is not getting very many feathers and there's a lot of hissing. And one thing to bear in mind as you sort of look at the future of the country in the 2030s, that it's generally true that the more homogeneous a country is, the easier it is for it to be taxed to support programs. And so it's not a surprise that when you look at which countries have the highest level of government involvement in the economy, they tend to be places like Denmark, Norway, Sweden, highly homogeneous societies, which have the lowest. Canada, Australia, the United States have the lowest because they're the most diverse. In the 2030s, we're going to have a population of young workers that is very heavily Latin American. And we're going to have a population of retirees that is very heavily white European. And it is going to be an interesting question whether that population of young workers, who, by the way, are not going to be very well off as their levels of education are rather lower than the levels of education of the retirees, whether they're going to be consent to be taxed at very high rates, much higher rates than are in place now, for the benefit not of their own grandparents, but of somebody else's grandparents. I think that's a formula for a lot of social tension. We better, well, start right away. There are a couple, the Social Security side is the easier side. With the Social Security, we have to lower the rate at which our commitments increase. For example, right now, Social Security benefits rise in proportion as wages rise. If Social Security benefits rose in proportion as inflation rises, that doesn't sound like a big difference. It's like 3/4 of a point a year, but it makes a huge difference to the affordability of the system. If you can reduce it from rising in tandem with wages to rising with inflation, you can make Social Security much more affordable. The great nightmare is Medicare and Medicaid, and that requires some larger changes in the healthcare system to prevent those programs from growing at the fantastic rate they're growing. But their growth is driven by the general inflation of healthcare costs. You can't solve the Medicare and Medicaid problem independent of the larger healthcare problem. And so I would say there you need to have much higher degrees of competition, effective competition in the marketplace to suppress healthcare inflation. And we are also going to have to start breaking it early to people in my generation that the level of public provision for us is not going to be as high as it is for the current generation of retirees. The society just can't manage it.